Story Grows, I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Hillhaven frontman Chris Kelly to the podcast. Chris was also a founding member of Star Wars metal outfit Galactic Empire. Chris talks about the impact the School of Rock School had on his musical trajectory, the trials of trying to make it as a musician, Galactic Empire's accidental rise to fame, the reason he decided to start a new project, and more. This is a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoy this chat. Thanks so much for listening to As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. You can find links in the show notes to my email address, asthestorygrows@gmail.com, our podcast mailing list, our Discord server, or you can support the show financially over on Patreon. And I would love it if you subscribed to the podcast feed on whatever podcast platform you prefer. Never miss an episode. Currently, we're releasing 2 episodes a week, so there's a lot of podcasts every week. Enjoy today's conversation with Chris Kelly from Hillhaven.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm on an off day. I'm in a hotel room in Kentucky. I'm exhausted, but other than that, all good.
Yeah. That magical. I mean, I assume you're on tour.
Yeah.
Magical tour lifestyle. At least you got a hotel. I mean, like that's something, right?
Could be worse. Could be a lot worse for sure.
It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
I've talked to those people before.
Yeah. I've been there for sure. Yeah. I'm lucky. I'm spoiled.
Yeah, for sure. How's tour been going?
It's good. Yeah, the tour's been going fine, but it's just I've been out for a month, and then to the South America first, and then starting the tour in the States, and a couple of days ago. We don't usually tours don't usually stop where I live. I live in a town called Bethlehem, PA, and you know, it's very much not one of the main markets. So, but we actually played there, and we had a day off there the day before. So the whole crew came over and did Thanksgiving at my place and whatever. So nice. I got that taste of home again. So nice. getting back on the bus to keep doing the tour was like I don't want to, you know.
It's that curse. I think Toby Morse from H2O was like, the pandemic was great because it's like, all right, off to tour, but then it's like, I'm fucking sick of being at home. I got to get on the road, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. When I'm home for a while, I feel bad that I'm not doing something, and when I'm doing something, I feel bad that I'm not spending time at home. It's just it never ends.
Yeah. Is Bethlehem where you grew up?
No, I grew up in Bucks County, PA, a town called Doylestown. So like an hour north of Philly.
Yeah, nice. What was growing up like?
Privileged. I'm one of those people that didn't learn the value of money or any legitimate real life lessons until adulthood, so it was a rude awakening when it was like, wait, you mean that bank account I got access to when I was 18 was all the money I had, but no, it was good. I don't, for obvious reasons now, I don't really have much to complain about when it comes to my upbringing. It was the quick impacts with the brick wall that is reality once I was on my own,
Yeah. That first time you get your own apartment or something, you're just like, oh shit, I have to go grocery shopping and it costs everything I own.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I said this to my drum tech a couple nights ago. We were walking somewhere and we were walking through New York and I just I had this instant flashback to, one of the few times I was in New York as a kid, just trying to keep up with my dad, just looking around sort of marveling, but also terrified by the chaos of the streets of Manhattan, and now I'm just walking through like booking it, trying to get to a pizza shop and get back in time for whatever we had to do. And and I just said to him, like, I was like, do you ever, like, does it ever just hit you that you're a grown up now and like you're just doing all this by yourself? Like, whose idea was that? You know what I mean? Like, you never really feel like I still get those like childhood thoughts of like, when you were a kid and you're like, I wonder like what my voice is going to sound like when I'm grown up. I wonder what I'm going to look like when I grow up. And like, there will be times where I'm just like, nah, dude, this is it. Like, and it hits you out of nowhere. It's the same thing. Like, not to get dark, but like the same, those random points in life where you just you get reminded that you're going to die, and you're just like, oh shit, like it's exactly like that. Where it's like, no, this is what I look like. This is what happened.
I just turned 40 and it was like that feels like a real adult age, like, but I don't feel like that. right yeah, I don't feel any different than I felt at like 16, right? Like, I recognize now that I was an idiot when I was 16, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I like don't think I'm an idiot now. You know what I mean? Like, I still, we're all just figuring it out. I think that's what nobody tells you. Like, no one knows what they're doing. No, not at all. What got you into music?
So this is not a joke, but makes people laugh. It was Lindsay Lohan. Do you remember that movie Freaky Friday?
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah, so her character has that like, punk rock band that plays in her garage, and like very early into the movie she just, gets in a fight with her mom, whatever, storms into the garage, picks up the Telecaster and just starts hitting power chords, and I was like like that's what I'm gonna do. And I mean, it was that movie and the movie School of Rock came out in the same year.
Okay.
And so both of those were incredibly formative for me. And then my mom wound up finding out that there was an actual school. Jack Black was not involved, but there was an actual School of Rock program that was like relatively close to my house. And so signed up for that like pretty much as soon as we were able to. And then I was there from 10 years old until I graduated high school. So I was playing cover shows every 3 months or something for like almost a decade.
Nice. That's awesome. At what point did you kind of discover, I don't know, whether it's Bucks County or going into Philadelphia, like the local scene, and maybe getting into hardcore metal or, just music in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, metal came through School of Rock. It was, they would do, once the schools get big enough, they start doing multiple shows and they split the kids up. And one season there were 2 shows that they were doing. They were doing Led Zeppelin and they were doing a classic metal show. And much like everybody else, I wanted to be in the Zeppelin show. And my guitar teacher, I went into my lesson one week and he was like, dude, you're gonna be mad at me, but I need you to do this metal show. And I was like, oh, dude, like, what the fuck? Come on, man. Like, why? Like, what did I do wrong? He's like, you haven't done anything wrong. That's the thing. Like, this stuff is hard. Like, we need people. I was probably like 14 at that point, and he was like, you're one of the better players we have. I need people who can play this stuff. Like, if you do this, he basically he like begged and bribed me. He was like if you do this show for me, like, I'll give you whatever you want forever, And I was like, oh, fine, like, pissy little teenager.
Yeah.
and then he was like, all right, this is the first song that I need you to learn. And he played Creeping Death. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And he was like, this is Metallica. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, cause I had just heard like Enter Sandman and that's that song, I Disappear that they did for Mission Impossible, like, I was like, Metallica's the guy who's like, and now I love that shit. But like back then I was like, what the fuck? And he was like, no. Like, this is like early days Metallica. This is like what like metal fans call like real Metallica, And that was it. From that point on, I was like, dude, like, this is everything. Like, I'm instantly like total 180. Like, so glad that I'm in this show instead of the Zeppelin show, And then I probably would have been like. Probably when I'm like 16 or 17 when I started my band in high school that I'm actually still in now.
Okay.
But it was, started like kind of metalcore-ish and then moved into, like tech death kind of stuff. And that would have been the sort of introduction to the local scene, and just, playing every venue in Philly that we could, and, doing pay to play, like, those things where, you think like, oh, this is our shot. You know what I mean? Like, we get to sell tickets to open up for, the Faceless or whatever it was. Not realizing what I know now, which is that, like, if a local opener is being put on the show, it means that show's not selling well at all.
Right.
It means the tour's not doing great. But back then, it was just like the coolest shit in the world. You know what I mean? Because you would basically, because they wouldn't tell anybody that you were playing until like a couple days before. That you would just get added to the marquee. So like the crowd would be pretty much all in there. You have like 1,200 people. And your band would go on stage, and you would just feel like kings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you do that local band walk through the crowd after the show, like as if anyone's going to recognize you, but like you ride that high for like 6 weeks, but I mean, we were fortunate. I mean, through School of Rock and through that band, which it was called Altered Image when I started it, but it's been called Illustrium for the significant portion of its career. But through, I mean, both of those, like School of Rock, by the time I was like 15, I had played in like every major apart from I didn't do the Link, or I don't even know if the Link existed back then. It might have still been Veteran Stadium or First Union or whatever. Like, I didn't play any of the stadiums, but I played, Festival Pier and the Troc and the TLA and the Factory and all those places. So I was really accustomed to being on stage. Like, I was really comfortable with it. And so when Illustrium would get a bigger show or something like that, if any of the guys were nervous, I'm like, dude, like it's no different. Like, it was kind of easy to talk everybody down. And I mean, we did get, like, even though, again, looking back now, like the pay to play stuff, like we did get some cool opportunities and make some cool, connections and make good relationships with the local promoters and stuff, so that when we did, book our own shows and stuff, like, however many people are listening. I don't know who's been to the Trocadero in Philly. It's not there anymore, but the main room was like a 1,200 cap, floor balcony kind of setup. And then there was a secondary venue above that, like on the balcony level. That was probably like a 200 cap or something. And so, like, I mean, it would be fairly easy to pack that out between us and, a couple other bands that we were friends with and stuff. So, we always struggled with finding a way to get on the road. We never really figured that part out for ourselves. And part of me wonders, like, because once I started touring professionally and I started making connections and stuff, well, suddenly then it wasn't so difficult to get a record deal for my high school band and whatever, because, now people, like, if I send somebody a text message, they might actually be willing to respond to me, But by the time we got the record deal, like, everybody had their lives at that point. I was touring full time. Our vocalist was, on his way to becoming a psychologist. My other guitar player, my writing partner, is in like surgical equipment sales, like just making, insane amounts of money. I don't even know how much. I don't even know how much he makes, but like, I know it's like the fact that it's not a conversation means it would make me feel bad. Yeah. And, so we had just, nobody was able to like, okay, well, now, like, now's our time. Now we can just go and tour. And also we weren't really willing to, because like at that point we knew what a death metal tour was going to look like. And, a couple of us had gotten spoiled, touring in buses and stuff like that. And so it's like we know what the cap is. Like, our band's not going to be Cannibal Corpse. You know what I mean? Like, we're never going to be like that. It's, that's like a 20-year building of a career, upper echelon. Like, they're the kings in that space, right? Like, most other bands are touring in, vans and sprinters and stuff. And there's, I'm not throwing shade at it. Like, like I loved touring in vans when I did it. It's just like now, like I haven't done it in a while and I question like how good I'd be in that situation now,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. At what point do you transition into kind of a guitar player for a hire or just going on tour with other bands?
Yeah, that was like, I feel like my entire career has been just right place, right time. Like to me, it feels like pure luck. Obviously, like other people, like, friends and family are like, when you say stuff like that, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, like you worked really hard or whatever. I'm like, yeah, like, like I learned how to play guitar and like, I got decent at writing music, in my own opinion, but like, I never felt like I did anything. You know what I mean? Like when I was in college, I went to college because that's just what was expected of me. And so I went for audio engineering at a school that no longer exists. So you can imagine how useful that is. But at the end of my program there, I had to get like internships. And so I knew that there was this studio out in Lancaster, called Atrium Audio that did, like metalcore bands and stuff. And so I got an internship with them out there. And, that's where I met Ricky, who's now in Hillhaven, obviously, more he's more known as being the guitar player in Ice Nine Kills. At the time he was, he's in his own band called Hawk too. But at the time Hawk was a band called This or the Apocalypse. It was like an OG, like metalcore band. Yeah. And I met him at that internship. And then the first tour that I ever did was filling in as the guitar player for This or the Apocalypse. And it was the last tour they ever did under that name. By all accounts, it was not a good tour, but to me, it was like looking back on it now, it's like the band knew they were rebranding, so they didn't print any new merch, so they didn't really sell anything, and we were direct support on a tour. The headliner was Sleeping Giant, who, total sweethearts, but like Toto was not a Christian band. Sleeping Giant is very much a Christian band. Oh yeah. And all the other bands on the tour were Christian bands. And again, some of the nicest people in the world, and some of like lifelong friends to this day, like Daniel Gailey, who now plays for Fit for a King. His band Phineas was one of the openers on that tour. Silent Planet was the opener on that tour, and that was before they even signed to Solid State. When they were still just a baby band. There was this band called Those Who Fear that played right before us, and the guitar player Luke is now in Lakeview, and the bass player, I think he was playing guitar for them. He's now the bass player of Gideon, is Caleb. Okay. So like so many people from that tour just like went on to do like insanely sick shit. But like we were the oddball on that tour. Like we were like literally the black sheep, and not amongst the bands. The bands were super accepting, but the Christian metal scene is like very like tightly. It's protective, and so like we would be at the merch table and kids would be like, oh, like I haven't heard of your band. Like I really liked your stuff. And we're like, oh, thanks, man. And they're like, so are you guys a Christian band? And we're like, nah, like, we're cool with it, obviously, but like we don't, like we just don't. We're not in any like particular lane. And they would just be like, oh, and then they would just kind of like back into the crowd, like
not buying their t-shirt.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, and like, the van broke down a bunch of times and we had to, sleep on people's couches and like, but like, that was, to me, I was just on tour. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like the only thing that I ever wanted to do. And it was like, it still is just some of the fondest memories that I still have of touring, was just being in the back of that van for, hours on end and just, goofing off, and then after that, I wound up starting a band called Galactic Empire with the two guys that run Atrium Audio, Grant and Carson. Which was just a joke. but we made the joke at the right time, and so
Right.
so the video went viral when we put it out, and then I think we put it out in like December of 2015 or something like that, and by the top of 2016, like we were getting tour offers, and like our first live performance was on national television, we got it was during the red carpet coverage, like during the Oscars, and like we got the email to do that, and we were like, you don't understand, like we don't know how to play this shit, like we just made this up, it's a joke. And they were like, well, either do it or don't, like we'll pay you to come out, we'll pay your way, we'll cover your flights, give you a hotel, whatever. And we're like, fuck, okay. So like we didn't even have our costumes for that. We just all wore like black, like emperor robes. Like, yeah, it was wild. broad daylight, fucking fashion show going on behind us. Like it was the weirdest shit in the world. But like, but yeah, and then that was my gig for a few years. It was just all of a sudden I was just in this, like I was just wearing a Darth Vader suit every fucking day, and playing Star Wars music and being in places that, like, as far as any of us were concerned, we had no business being there. Yeah. Like, just because of the novelty of our band. I mean, I'm not taking away, like we were all very proficient at our instruments, and like what we did as far as like turning the Star Wars scores into like metal songs was nobody else had done it to that degree. We had plenty of like weird, obscure people from the fan base be like, oh, this is the same as like this band, and we'd be like, oh shit, like did we copy somebody? And we'd listen to that band, and it was like shitty garage punk, and it was like, but so they're singing about Star Wars, so that's the same thing, like fuck off. We were doing something that, like, even though it was a glorified cover gig, like in that way it hadn't been done before, so it was getting a lot of attention, and so I mean we were getting booked on all kinds of like big Euro festivals. That was right before like the Danny Wimmer era, before he like really kind of like solidified the US festival market. Those didn't really exist back then yet. Yeah. And so, but we would do, we played like, first band on the stage at Grass Pop, and thinking that we're going to be, oh shit, we're going to be playing a nobody, it's just this huge, it's like the third stage, and it's this huge tent, and like nobody's here, and like this is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be so embarrassing. We did our little sound check, line check. Well, that sound check, line check was enough for 15,000 people to be like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? And so by the time we got dressed and came out on stage, it was full, and so stuff like that was just like unbelievable. Played with Ozzy in Poland, like just like shit that are stupid. Like we're walking to the stage, and Zach Wilde just got into the venue, and he's laughing at us in the hallway because we look ridiculous, but yeah, just like as many like horror stories from that time as I may have, like I have just as many cool ones, and that is ultimately, this is the gig that I have now that is, everyone knows, but I can't say anything. But that, ultimately Galactic Empire is what got me here, so now I'm, so I kind of settled into the hired gun life for a while. And it was when I did the like 18 months or so filling in with Ice Nine Kills that like, I sort of remembered what it was like to, not be behind a mask, and to be able to kind of put your own personality into things. Yeah. And also like, when that time ended, like I kind of had this weird sort of like emotional, like breaking point where I realized I had to try to find a way back into like the creative side of things. 'Cause I had gotten so gung ho on like, I'm just going to be a guitar player and people will hire me for their shit. But then I realized that I didn't really I didn't really know what I liked about it anymore. It just became my job, and I kind of became resentful of like the business and like even the audience to a degree. Like, I in almost an instant, like overnight, like I went from being able to like make direct eye contact with somebody in the audience and like kind of feed off of one another's energy. And then it felt like the next day was like, I couldn't bear to look anybody in the eyes. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't at all part of your question. It's just sort of how things went. But like, that's, I feel like, and I mean, I know other people who have dealt with stuff like that. And I feel like that's not necessarily something that's always talked about. In like, cause you kind of get caught up in like the glamour of the touring life and whatever. If you're lucky enough to get, a paying gig that's doing relatively well, and you're paying you're playing big places and you're driving in buses and whatever, like, you're just like, oh, this is sick. But like, eventually the sort of like the curtain drops, and then you gotta like remind yourself like what you liked about it in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. When you decide to launch your own project with Hillhaven, did you know you could sing and you wanted to be the front man to not just be the guitar player?
So I knew I could sing. Okay. I did a lot of backing vocals with Ice Nine and like harmonies, and even some of the, because a lot of the vocals for that band, like on the records, like there's a lot of overlap and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So like I would even do some of like the lead parts, to be sort of the kind of filling the gaps, and like I definitely enjoyed doing that a lot. I wasn't very good at screaming. I could do the kind of growly stuff, but I didn't know how to do anything beyond that point. And it was, I was also involved with another band called Huxley. When I was touring with Ice Nine, Huxley was like I had started as their producer, few years before that. And then eventually wound up kind of joining the band and trying to help them sort of like navigate, kind of rebranding themselves as this like active rock kind of thing. And so I wrote this song to be used with that band, and it wound up not getting used. There was some interpersonal stuff. But I had their singer on the song, and I had sent it to Maddie, our drummer, and was like, do you think this is good? Like I can't remember, like, cause like I thought it was good, but I had never top lined a song before. Like I had done co-writes with people, but I always just did the instrumental side of stuff. I never thought I was very good at writing lyrics or vocals or anything. And that was the first time that I did that. And he was like, yo, like, are you working on this? Like, is this something are you going to like make something out of this? Cause if you want a drummer for it, like I would do it. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. But then, obviously it wasn't being used for Huxley, and that singer wasn't going anywhere. He was staying with his band. So I was like, fuck, okay, well, like I can either try to find another singer, which, whether or not they can sing is like half of it. You know what I mean? Like less than half of it. Like they gotta have the look, which, I mean, do I have the look? Probably not, if I'm honest with myself. But like, like you like if you're auditioning singers, like you have an idea in your head, especially if you're looking for like radio rock kind of stuff. Right. And I was like, well, all right, like I'll give it a shot. So I redid the vocals, and then I just named the files singer 1 and singer 2. I can't remember which one I was. But I sent both those to Maddie, and I think Ricky was one of them, and a couple other people like in the industry, and then just other friends of mine that were casual listeners of the genre, right? And I was like don't worry about the details, just tell me which one you like better. And to my surprise, most of the people that gave me feedback wound up liking mine. Okay. Which I was kind of resistant to even then, because I was just like, because I thought the original guy sounded better, it just because I think it's pretty common for people to not really love the sound of their own voice. Yeah. So and I had never done the frontman thing before, and so I was kind of like nervous about it and whatever. But yeah, I mean, most of the feedback that I got, they were like, yeah, we like whichever number I was. So I was like, all right, well, like the good news is that I've now sort of confirmed that like I'm able to kind of go from start to finish on a song by myself. And like I'm better at writing lyrics than I thought I was. I'm better at writing melodies than I thought I was. So I'm like, maybe I could do, like, if I was able to do this once, I could probably do it again. So Maddie and I started talking about like what the project would look like and who else we would get. And, you know, we didn't really have like a plan for it. And I think also like, even by the time we kind of had like the lineup together, you know, I only had 2 songs written, and that first song wound up being Gaps, the song that we put out in June. So I think to a degree, much like Galactic Empire was in the beginning, it was this sort of weird conversation that you have with a couple of your friends of like, wouldn't it be cool, you know, you know, if we could all do this, but like, you know, everyone was super busy and on tour all the time. And so it was like getting everybody in a room together was going to be a tall order. So at one point it just kind of like settled in for me as like, I really think this could work. And if I want to be able to see it through, then like I should just keep plugging away at this. Yeah. So I basically just like locked myself in every hotel room that I had, and, you know, back lounges of tour buses. And when I was home, any free time that I had, you know, I'd be staying up late and working on stuff. And within like a year or so, I had like 9 songs or something like that done. And so I would just, every time I would finish one, I would just send it to the guys and be like, yo, like any feedback. And like, if I had issues, like, you know, this lyric is fucking me up, I can't crack. Like I have the phrasing that I want, I think, but I can't figure out what words to put there, whatever. Like Ricky would be really helpful with stuff like that. So I would always be like bouncing ideas off of everybody. But for like, as far as like the, you know, kind of heavy lifting on the writing stuff, I just kind of took to that mainly because I'm impatient, you know, like, I was like, I want to get this done, you know? Yeah. And, but yeah, just like, luckily all the stuff that I was putting forth, everybody seemed happy with, you know? So, but then also like from that point on, like once again, it became clear that it was like, all right, like I think everybody, myself included, kind of needs a proof of concept on this, because until there's like something scheduled, everyone's just going to be like, yeah, the songs are cool, you know, like, and that's kind of where it ends. Like, good job, you know? But so I was like, all right, well, like I'm going to schedule music videos. I'm going to buy a camera. I'm going to figure out how to edit video, which I never wanted to learn how to do. It wound up not being as bad as I thought it was going to be, and everyone always told me it's not really that bad. But like I was the producer guy. Like I work in Pro Tools. I know how to edit audio. I know how to mix stuff, and like I have my workflow for that. I don't need to learn a whole new batch of key commands. Like I don't want any of that. Like but when you're doing something kind of on your own, like you have to you want to keep costs low so that you're not just like, you know, tens of thousands of dollars into the hole and then the whole thing falls apart. So, but yeah, once we got the music videos on the books, I think, and like we all got together, you know, the chemistry was really good right away. And that, you know, Matt and Ricky and I have all known each other for a long time, but I had never met Jimmy. The rest of them had never met Jamie, our bass player. So like, you never totally know if everyone's going to gel, but like, it was very, very quick. And, you know, kind of one of those things where you just sort of feel like you've been working together for a long time, like already. And the shoots went great. We did 3 music videos in 3 days and fucking wrapped it up, you know. Nice. And then it was just a matter of like figuring out how to put it out, you know what I mean? But at least by that point, it was like everyone was like, oh, okay. Like I guess this is going to be a thing, you know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, it's a band, you know. It's like something that we can be, you know, a little bit excited about. I always wondered when this would start, when I would finally feel the filth I dragged around my eyes. The fear and shame could motivate, but in the face of change, every region
all the single artwork has a constant through line and theme, very similar artwork. Who came up with the concept for the art direction for the band?
Also me. I put on a lot of hats. I put myself under a lot of stress for this, but because originally the plan was to do a record. And I mean, we have enough material, both of what we've released and what we haven't released. Like there is enough material there for a record. It's just the timing and the PR budgets and all kinds of stuff. Because like when you put on a record, you want to have like merch bundles and like all this kind of stuff to go with it, and you want to have enough time to promote it and blah 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 blah. And it just like it didn't really work out that way. So we're kind of figuring out what to do. But I had done the artwork for what was going to be the album cover, and it had that same kind of hooded guy, and there's something on fire, and because the whole thing, while I'm sure it's stuff on fire is not a horribly original artistic direction when it comes to heavier music, but so much of the writing process and especially the lyrical process was like just like a lot of personal catharsis and kind of literally feeling like you're kind of finally addressing all of your personal bullshit and people and things that you've been mad at or mad about or whatever, and then just kind of putting it all in one place and burning it all down, and in a good way, like in a healing kind of way, so I figured, okay, well, if the end goal is the record, then I feel like we can't just use the same artwork for every single, and I don't just want to have like a different color and like the logo and the name. Like I don't want to half-ass it. So every single's got to have kind of its own thing, but there should be like a cohesive, sort of mascot thing. So I call him the arsonist. Mm-hmm. That's the sort of unofficial term for the guy, but it's basically just like everywhere this dude is, stuff is burning, and so just basically like came up with different ideas that could sort of be based around that, and so now with this last song that we released, which is like the sort of conclusion point, the hopeful, future oriented, like leaving all the negativity behind kind of vibe. There's no fire in the artwork now. It's just that he's leaving the scene of like leaving all of the burned shit behind. So once I had done that initial like album artwork idea, which I had a couple of different ideas floating around, but it was all the same basic concept. Like it was relatively easy to just think like, okay, like basically take the name of the song and then how do I use that to kind of adapt the same thing 7 times so that I don't have to come up with 7 unique concepts to something, So it was like half luck, half laziness,
Yeah. You guys have put out 7 singles thus far this year. What's kind of next year and the future for the band look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, originally the plan was a record, and we still want to do some kind of, complete body of work, whether that encompasses the songs, like if we do the Falling in Reverse thing, which they're not the first band to do that, but it's now what everybody uses as the kind of benchmark.
Yeah. I mean, it's so common these days where everybody would rip like 9 singles and then release an album and it's got like 1 extra song on it, and you're like, awesome, right.
Like, and I mean, for anybody who doesn't know why they do that, it's because every song has an ISRC code, which is like its ID number. And so when you put that song out by itself and it gets however many streams, those streams carry over onto the record. Mm-hmm. So if your song got 20 million streams, just by putting that song on your full album, day one, your album has 20 million streams. Oh, shit. You know what I mean? So, so like that's the motivation behind that. That's why the single game is so strong with everybody right now. But so we could do that. Obviously I don't have any songs that have 20 million streams on them, which would be nice, but
not yet.
Not yet. But there's also new material that I've been working on and that everyone seems to be, stoked on. And, hopefully we'll be able to find some actual time to get everybody together in a room, like whether that's, collaborating from the writing perspective or even just like more from a recording perspective, like actually getting some more like live elements and stuff in there. that would definitely be very cool. But talking to a couple like potential labels, booking agents, that kind of thing, and just trying to sort of feel out what a realistic approach to 2025 could look like. Because at this point, it's not like the band has ascended to some insane level, but there's enough momentum that I would like to keep it going for sure. And I think everybody else would probably agree. So it's just going to be about trying to figure out, how to work as intelligently as we can and just make, the right choices as often as possible.
Yeah. While still finding time to, play in these other bands and
what I mean? Right. That's the thing. We all need our income and stuff like that. So there is, but I mean, acknowledging that, and I'm only speaking for myself. I can't speak for anybody else, but, being the sort of front man and kind of the face of this thing, at a certain point, if it looks like, hey, if we follow this trajectory, the thing could really take off. That will be a sort of difficult decision that I have to make of, okay, well, do I prioritize this or do I prioritize my income? And I'm kind of where the buck stops on that. You know what I mean? Because if I'm not willing to do it, then nobody's going to be willing to do it. Yeah. So, it's a bridge that we cross when we get there. It's a problem for future Chris.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, right. Exactly. That's kind of been my MO for a long time. It's just, fuck that guy a few months from now. But yeah, no, I mean, everything, the reception has been, so overwhelmingly positive on this that I just it's been very validating and it's just, I definitely don't want to just be cool, we put out 7 songs last year. We played 1 show. Thanks everybody. Peace, I would definitely like to, kind of keep it going and see what it can do.